I believe we are live on today's live stream with Akash Network and Skynet Labs. Thank you all for joining today. My name is Adam Mosney, and I head up Community at Akash. I'll also be your host for today's conversation. Today, we're going to be discussing the recent partnership announcement between Skynet and Akash with Colin Lowenberg, a Developer Relations and Business Development Manager here at Akash, and Daniel Helm, a Developer Evangelist for Skynet Labs. If you have any questions throughout today's live stream, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll respond to as many as we can at the end of our conversation. One other quick note, after this live stream is over, be sure to follow both Skynet and Akash on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord to keep this conversation going. So today I wanted to kick off today's live stream by giving a few Akash updates since we held our last live stream. First up, due to the impressive stability exhibited by the Akash network since launch and throughout the upgrade to AkashNet 2, Community Governance Proposal number 7 was proposed, voted on, and passed, increasing validator nodes on the network from 64 to 75. This new governance helps bring more stability and security to the Akash network. We released a guide on our blog walking you through how to gain access to the Akash token, as well as provide liquidity on the recently launched Osmosis DEX. It's a must-read for developers looking into deploying onto Akash. If you haven't heard of Osmosis, you need to get out from underneath that rock you've been living on or living under and go to osmosis.zone to learn all about it. Alongside a recent huge announcement, we released a how-to guide focused on helping developers run their own node with Cosmosis Omnibus. So in short, Omnibus is a simple way to set up and run any blockchain in the Cosmos ecosystem on the Akash network. Everyone at Akash is super stoked about it, so go check that blog post out. Next up, we announced the Akash Challenge winners from the recent Solana Hackathon. We were so impressed with all 7 submissions that all 7 projects won. So if any of you guys that won that project or won that prize are on, congratulations, and congratulations to all the winners. Lastly, and for all the Akash validators and delegators out there, governance proposal number 8 is live. This proposal aims to decrease the inflation rate of the AKT supply as deployments and usage continues to grow. You have until July 16th to get out there and rock the vote. Now, before we get into today's conversation, I want to introduce our guest for today. So first up is Colin Lowenberg, a stellar developer advocate and business development lead here at Akash Network. So Colin, we'd love to hear a little bit more about you. Why don't you introduce yourself to our guests?
Hi, everyone. I'm Colin Lowenberg. Nice to meet you. I'm pretty stoked to share with you guys what we've been doing with Skynet. I think a lot of people in the community have pinged us wondering what's going on with our partnership. I like to think that our partnership really took off when we were in Miami. So we met up and hung out on a boat and realized that not only are our technologies really compatible with each other, but also our teams are also really compatible with each other. So I'm pretty excited to work with this team at Skynet and, just kind of being open to new ideas. But my background, if you want to know a little bit about me, I actually spent 15 years as a wireless engineer designing wireless networks before I took the blockchain pill, quit my job at Cisco, and went into a little tiny startup back in 2018. So I've been in blockchain since about 2017, and I've tried running my own startup to provide therapy dogs on demand. And then when COVID hit, I realized I need to find a blockchain project that I really care about. And Greg Osuri, the founder of Akash, has been a good friend of mine. And I realized that the web needs to change. The architecture of the web from deplatforming to censorship to just the scalability of centralized exchanges and scalability issues with a lot of different services and downtime has kind of forced me to realize that we need to work on a new type of internet or a slightly improved version of the internet. So I joined Akash just 3 months ago, and I want to tell you a little bit more about Akash. But first, I'll let Dan introduce himself.
Thank you for that, Colin. I'm I didn't know that about you, but the therapy dogs that you had, is that any relation to goat yoga? Did you guys ever think about partnering with goat yoga folks?
We did consider partnering with dog yoga or Doga. One of my friends started a Doga company in Florida. You can find that on the internet. But Dog Time Community was the name of my startup, and therapy dogs was actually a pretty big business. So they reduce anxiety, depression, something I think a lot of people need now after spending a year indoors. So.
Yeah, totally. That's really cool. Cool. By the way, Doga, no relation to anything Dogecoin, I'm assuming, right?
No, if only I had launched a dog themed coin, that would have been fun. So.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. Cool, thank you, Colin. So next up, we have Daniel Helm, a developer evangelist from Skynet Labs, and over the course of prepping for this live stream, just learned he's an all-around great guy to know in the crypto space. So hey, Daniel, why don't you introduce yourself to some of the folks watching at home?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Daniel Helm. I'm the developer evangelist at Skynet Labs. I live in Oklahoma. Before being here at Skynet Labs, I was actually finishing my Master of Fine Arts in Studio Art. And so I have both an engineering background from before that and the CS degree, and also doing art and art education work. And so I really like that intersection, and I really like experimenting with new technologies. And I've been experimenting with crypto since I started mining back in 2016, 2017. So, I think Skynet's got a lot to offer, and I'll give my shtick for that when I present it. But I think that's enough for me.
Awesome. Actually, one quick question. I've actually never been through Oklahoma. What's the crypto community like there? Is it a pretty big, kind of robust community, or what's it been like for you?
It is every once in a while seeing someone and being like, "Whoa, you're into crypto." That's the most of it. There's a woman that runs a Vietnamese restaurant that was really into crypto, and I met someone on that boat party who heard I was from Oklahoma and lives in the town over. So that is what our community of crypto people is like. I think Tulsa in the east has a better one, but
nice. We gotta try to find some evangelists over there, some ambassadors. Maybe we'll onboard them someday. So cool. Thank you, Colin and Daniel, for those introductions. I did kind of want to jump right into our conversation and kind of introductions to Akash and Skynet today. So first up, I wanted to hand the microphone over to Colin. And actually, we do have a very special guest today. His name is Derek from our engineering team. And I was hoping that you, Colin and Derek, could actually give us kind of an introduction to Akash, maybe even do some rough demos of kind of what Akash is capable of. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thanks, Adam. And you're doing a great job at organizing these live streams. Really love how well we get these going. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully, let's make sure it's the right level of resolution for everybody.
Cool.
Can you guys see my screen?
Looks good.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So I've put together a little presentation, and I don't really want to bore you guys with slides or anything, but I think it's nice to kind of just make sure everybody on the call, because people are coming from the Skynet side of things and they might not know much about Akash. So I'm going to just do a real quick primer on what is Akash, what you can run on Akash, and why you'd run on Akash. And then we'll talk a little bit about the challenges, and then how do you deploy to Akash. So if you're not familiar with Akash, this is a quick rundown, but essentially Akash makes it really easy to take any Docker image that you have and deploy it to any cloud that's available on our network. Akash provides a marketplace that you can find and lease container services from multiple cloud providers. So we have some amazing cloud providers already on there, including Equinix and other major providers that we're onboarding. At the same time, it's a permissionless blockchain marketplace, so anyone could become a cloud provider. So that brings up, the ability for anyone to host and anyone to then lease those hosting capabilities. So in a way, we're a compute marketplace. We're making it easy for developers to rent and lease compute resources from cloud providers. This makes it a marketplace, just like Amazon. If you go to Amazon today, you go and try to buy some shoes, you have multiple options where you can buy those shoes from. But when you go to Amazon Web Services and you try to buy, you try to deploy some serverless application, or you want to even just get an EC2 instance, there's only one company that they offer it from themselves. And today we've created this issue of Amazon, Google, and Microsoft kind of owning that cloud and having more than 80% of the cloud marketplace. So we're trying to break up that triple monopoly and bring it to the masses. Allow any small data center or anyone even with a home server to run and be the host, and anyone who's a developer can easily deploy from the command line without having to sign up for any accounts or fill out any invoices or have to deal with monthly true up bills. The way that our marketplace works is you make a deployment on the blockchain, and you can basically deploy anything you want. So that's what makes us different from other blockchain projects, is that we're not restricting you to run in any type of EVM or special coding language. You don't need to learn any new skills to deploy on Akash. You just need to learn how to use our CLI tool. And we're going to show you a little demo later how we made that CLI tool even easier. And for example, here's a Ruby on Rails app running on Akash, and it actually has a Postgres database, and it backs up to Skynet. So this is a integration between Skynet and Akash that backs up the database every day to Skynet. But at the same time, everything is running on the Akash network, hosted on a cloud provider. So you can run any type of application. There's nothing you need to go write a new language for. Another key thing is that we're completely open source. So if you want to contribute to our project, you can. If you want to just add another application. So in order to add an application to the Akash network, all you have to do is write a simple stack definition file that basically defines what the Docker image is and what resources you need. And then you can add it to our awesome Akash repo. And then anyone can go and take your deployment file and then deploy on Akash very easily. Now, one of the key, the goals of Akash is to make this easy for developers. So I'm sort of the documentation lead. If you go to docs.akash.network, you'll find step-by-step instructions how to use and set up Akash, and we'll give you $100 just to get you started. So you'll find on that page how to get funding from us. It requires simply posting on our forum to get your first $100 to get going. Now, why would you use Akash? Well, number one reason you'd use Akash is we are cheaper than Amazon. Not just cheaper than Amazon, we are significantly cheaper than Amazon. So if you want to scale up, you envision having 1,000 servers or 1,000 containers, you can do that on Akash for about 1/3 the price of Amazon. So this is pretty amazing. This is actually a tool called Akashlytics, built by one of our community members, that shows the price comparison. Also, if you start working with Akash, we have a great community on Discord. Encourage you guys to join it on discord.akash.network. I'm in there every day helping folks out, as is Derek. So to deploy on Akash, you just install Akash, choose a network that's mainnet, create a wallet, fund that wallet, request bids for your deployment. And then you get to choose from all the providers that bid on your deployment, and you select the provider you want. And then once you've leased it, you can send them a manifest and they deploy your application on their cloud. So here's some quick important links. The support site is forum.akash.network. We're going to talk a little bit about some challenges at the end of it, but just to give you a preview, we're giving away $100 just to get you started on Akash. And then at the same time, we're going to give away a $10,000 prize for the Akash Skynet challenge. So you can go to skyx.io to get started, and we'll have all the information for that challenge on that forum. So I'm going to pause right there and encourage you guys to take a look at the documentation. And if you have any questions, you can ping us on the forum or Discord. So I want to pause there and let Dan give a little intro to Skynet.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for that, Colin. I appreciate that. And then I believe, next up we have Daniel. I was kind of hoping you could do the same kind of thing for Skynet, just kind of give people a high level vantage point of what Skynet is and how people can kind of get involved.
Yeah, so look, I've even got a slideshow where I have created a Skynet primer here. So Colin gave us a really good sense of what Akash network looks like as kind of vanilla Akash. And I want to do the same for Skynet, kind of Skynet in a bubble here, for anyone that might not be as familiar with us. So I don't think I need to preach to the choir about the virtues of decentralization, both as a technology and as an ethos. But really at Skynet, we're looking at platforms and protocols that are really easy for developers to learn and that don't require users to have special software or anything to onboard on to these apps. So Skynet is our solution to this that we've created, and it really tries to fill this gap. And to really understand it, though, we're going to need to look at the blockchain storage project that underpins Skynet, and that is the Saya network. So the Saya network was founded in 2014. It's a decentralized storage protocol with a model of renters and hosts. And so you can kind of see it like Airbnb, where you have data storage and some people have extra space and some people need that space. And so they can create kind of smart contracts and able to exchange Saya coins in order to allocate that space to those who need it. There's lots of exciting stuff about Saya, but at the end of the day, it's really fast, it's really secure, it's super affordable, but it's built for personal storage, not for sharing that storage over the open web. And so that's where Skynet kind of comes and fills that gap as a layer 2 that's built on top of Saya. And so to kind of see this, we can take a look at this diagram where we have the Saya network over here, and we have all these different pieces of storage being provided by maybe personal PCs or servers or even whole data centers. And we have Skynet that interacts with the Saya network through what we call Skynet portals. And so users access Saya data through Skynet by using a portal. And so this could be a public portal. We run one called sayasky.net, or it could be a private portal that you run the software on your machine, because it's all fully open source software. And so this is kind of the heart and the model of what we're looking at for Skynet. What's super exciting about this idea of a public portal is that these users are accessing Skynet just through their web browser. They don't have to have any crypto, they don't have to have browser plugins, anything like that. I think the easiest way to kind of see Skynet and its potential is just to use it. So real fast, I'm going to jump onto sayasky.net, grab a file. Didn't prep what file to grab here, but I'll grab a random image. We see it uploads, it spits out a link, and I instantly have this image on decentralized storage on Skynet. This is probably too small for anyone to read, but it says sayasky.net, and then there's a URL here. And I could just change this from my portal to another one. So let's do skyportal.xyz. This is not infrastructure run by Skynet Labs, but this is instantly available in a decentralized way. So that is cool and exciting. Let me get my presentation back up. So we saw back, we got a thing like this. This is what we call a Skylink. And when you attach it onto a portal URL, that's how you can access the Skylink. And I'll show a little bit of this in our demos later. The thing about this, though, is that we get this, this string, the Skylink, and it points at that file kind of as it is. It is a mutable file, or if you're a programmer, you can think of constants. That file is there and it's not going to change. If it changes, this URL changes. And so we have a kind of cryptographic guarantee that the portal's not lying to us about the file, and that the file that was uploaded is the file that's downloaded. And if we go to this URL, it's always going to be that file, which is a really kind of powerful thing to build architectures around. We saw how to upload that file on the portal on our webpage, but it's just as easy in code. You create a Sky client, you call upload file, you pass it a file reference, and it's there to download. So this is all looking at immutable data, but the power of Skynet really gets unlocked when you're looking at mutable data, because you don't always want some sort of constant, unchanging variable there. And so what we want to be able to do is have a single reference, a single location that points to other data for us. And we want that to still be decentralized, trustless, and everything else. And we have a few different ways of approaching this. And I'm not going to really dive into each of these, but I just want folks to be aware of the possibilities that come up when we start looking at mutable data that is really going to power these rich dynamic apps without a centralized storage backend. And so we can look at this through SkyDB, which stores JSON files that can be kind of fetched with this kind of public key and data key. We have a whole project called MySky, which is kind of a Skynet-wide login product that lets users take their application data across apps. And so your MySky files come with you, and you kind of hold on to your data in that way. We also have what we call V2 Skylinks, which are things that take the form of a Skylink, but then point to other Skylinks. And so you're able to have a constant URL that looks at other data on the Skynet network. And then we also have human readable ways of accessing this data, which is through things like Handshake and Handshake domain names. So you can point Handshake names to files on Skynet. So this is kind of a little bit of the ecosystem of looking beyond immutable data. And if you have questions on these, I'm going to point you to the documentation and hope that you join our Discord. So all told, we really believe that Skynet can make the Web3 and DWeb accessible today for users and developers without the special browsers or extensions or wallets or smart contracts, and in a way that can really seamlessly accommodate all those things if you need to bring them into your application. And we've seen all sorts of exciting projects built on this already. So some of the kind of web apps we see in the Skynet ecosystem, we have this one project called SkyTransfer, which is really exciting. You can encrypt your files in browser, upload them, share folders of files with your friends. We've seen an entire kind of decentralized social network built on Skynet called Skyfeed. And we recently had a hackathon where we had a kind of leaderboard. So you would create a MySky profile, you would interact with a bunch of different apps, and this data that you created while using these apps was discoverable and public so that other places could look at that data and build in interaction in their own apps. And so data is really interoperable between all these applications. And we're going to take a look at that leaderboard later on too. So the whole goal here, the gist of it, is that any developer can build a DWeb app that anyone can use. We'll be talking about use cases that overlap with Akash for sure, but I do want to just kind of briefly touch on some of the incredible use cases we've seen already. Building fully decentralized web apps, yes, but also there's an idea of creating a persistent storage layer for decentralized and P2P apps, where sometimes these things just live on the different machines. You can kind of have a persistent layer for that. We've seen it used for off-chain storage for blockchains, censorship-resistant website hosting, and even Minecraft world hosting. And the space that I'm pretty excited about is kind of server-side scraping, where scraping can happen, backup can happen, but you can publish the results of the scraping to Skynet so that your API doesn't have to really interact with users, but can just kind of publish the data, which is then available in a decentralized way on Skynet. So I'll get all these resources out, but we have a Skynet guide at support.sciasky.net. We have our documentation for the SDK here, and we have SDKs available whether by us or by community members in Go, Python, Dart, Ruby, Swift, Rust, command line. I don't even think that's exhaustive, but our JavaScript one is our major one that has most of the features. Join us on our Discord. I'll be saying that over and over again because the community there is super generous with their knowledge and super knowledgeable. And I like to hang out there and help folks too. So that's it for my Skynet intro. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. That was great. And thanks to Colin as well for kind of those high levels of both Skynet and Akash. I've been watching all the questions that are coming in on the chat. Keep those questions coming. We're going to try to get to those at the end of our conversation with Colin and Daniel. But in the meantime, I did some questions of my own. And I kind of wanted to see if maybe both of you could kind of maybe just chat a little bit about kind of how these two architectures fit together and how it kind of benefits folks that are looking to deploy like cloud applications within kind of each of these infrastructures. Maybe some of the benefits, some of the things you got to look out for, some kind of key learnings or kind of use cases. Just hearing a little bit more from you guys, and maybe we'll go to you, Colin. You can kind of kick it off, just talking about how these architectures fit together.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the lead on this one, as give Dan a chance to take a breath. And I also want to invite one of our engineers from the core dev team, Derek, who recently built the Akash JS tool and is working on a really cool single command to deploy from GitHub to Skynet and Akash. And that's Derek Anderson. Hi, Derek. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And right now this is kind of like off the rails, I guess you could say. But of the things that we've already built on Skynet, I think you mentioned a few of those use cases, and we've actually got a lot of them on our docs. And so if you go to our docs page, I'll share just so you guys can see. Share my screen. There we go. Boom. And if you go to our docs, let's see. If you go to the docs page, on docs.akash.network, you'll see right on the left side, we actually have like 3 or 4 examples of Skynet integrations right here. Unstoppable Web 2.0, Postgres Restore Backup, Ruby on Rails. So, just to give you like the first thing that we built was actually this Postgres Restore Backup. And the idea is like, hey, you can run a database, you can run a full application on Akash, but one of the issues, or one of the the areas where Akash does not provide a feature is storage and persistent storage specifically. So when a container goes down, you lose all of the data that was in that container because you're really just building it from a Docker image. So you're not going to have all that data. So when you run a database on Akash, you want to back it up somewhere. And so we use Skynet to do that. So we did this with Postgres. You could do it with any database. Now that got started our integration. That was kind of like our first integration. We said, okay, well, that integration actually used Firebase to do the connection, right? Firebase is an S3 compatible storage host that partners with Skynet. So we kind of had this middleman, Firebase, connecting Skynet and Akash. And then we realized that we actually want to build a front end on Skynet and a back end on Akash. So what we did was we built this Pinterest-like clone, pen.akash.host. And this is the cute one with all the dogs. Obviously, I used to run a dog therapy company. So this is kind of like inspiration for what this Pinterest-like site would look like. And we do the front end on Skynet and the back end and the database on Akash, and still also back up the database to Skynet. Then we realized that we needed the community to dive in because these are just things built by one community member. So we put out a challenge to build an unstoppable web. And the unstoppable web is Handshake for DNS, Skynet for the front end, Akash for the back end, and then a database like Postgres that also backs up to SIA or Skynet. Skynet's actually in there twice, but essentially this is the unstoppable web stack that I think we have kind of envisioned as the Akash Handshake Skynet stack. And from there, we realized that while we've got these frameworks, what we really need is something to speed up that deployment. So if you go to the Skynet challenge, skyx.io, you can see a lot of these links here. So if you're trying to find all these things, they're all linked on here. But we realized that one of the challenges with deploying on Akash is it's a CLI tool, and it's not necessarily something that a developer can pick up in 5 minutes and deploy. It takes maybe 20 minutes to get yourself started and use the command line. So we really wanted to improve our developer tooling. And so Derek has actually built a really cool tool. And I want to pause there. Dan, do you have any ideas or other things that you guys, other integrations you guys want to share before we do a demo?
We can maybe jump back to some of the integrations that we've been working on, but just to kind of like back it up, just I think a little bit broadly back to the question too, is just wanting to remind folks that this is the full stack now, right? We have the compute on Akash, we have the storage on Skynet. And so when you ask like, what can you do with this? It's like, this, you can do anything on this now. The whole centralized web, we have feature parity with it at this point. And so I think that's super exciting, and it's super exciting to see all the different, pillars that can get knocked down through decentralization now when you really can combine these tools.
So what would you think is the next big step? So you actually came up with an idea for Dog API as a demo. So I think that's a pretty cool idea. Just like taking any Docker image and running it on Akash, and if it needs persistent storage, you use Skynet for that. Or you can use Skynet as the front end and Akash as the back end. So I think we've kind of have those two use cases of the multi-layered approach, front end, back end, as well as the backup and restore. But I also feel like we could improve sort of the developer flow, like the whole CI/CD environment. We need to make it really easy to deploy on Skynet automatically, as well as deploying on Akash automatically, without having to like go use a command line. You want to just be able to deploy from a GitHub action, right?
Yeah, I think that's, whatever improves the developer experience moving forward, for all the variety of architectures that are going to get built out of these things. I think that's the exciting bits. And so that can be deploying the front end to Skynet, and that can be deploying these database dumps to Skynet, but all in kind of an automatic and automated way.
So Derek, I want to ask you, because I think you kind of have the answer already, but like, what can we do to make it easier to like deploy Skynet and Akash together?
So the one thing that I've learned a lot over my years in business is to make the customer happy is you do business where the customer's at. And so I think really the next step is bringing Akash and Skynet to the developer instead of having the developer come to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So Dan, do you have a demo you want to show us today?
Yeah, sure. I think there's kind of like two instances of things that I would maybe like to show. One is I referenced this leaderboard in my kind of intro talk. I thought I might just kind of like point it out again and show how Akash works into that. Because,
great.
Yeah, so I don't know. Am I still screen sharing? I believe so here.
I don't see your screen myself. I do now.
How about now? Okay. So yeah, we had this Built to Explore hackathon where developers were building all these different Skynet applications that interacted with MySky, which is this way to have a single login across Skynet, and your data stays with that login. And so all these applications can use this data and share this data in a really rich way. But we wanted to come up with a way to visualize this. And so we ended up building what we called the leaderboard as a way to kind of like see who is creating content, who is interacting with content. Maybe even make this a tiny bit bigger. And then also, you might want to like look into a user. So you might click on their name and see their profile that lives in this decentralized environment too. And so when you like look up this decentralized data, that's really easy, but it's hard to be able to scrape all of this data in real time, right? We need something like a server backend to be able to kind of start accumulating this data and then making choices about it. Because on Skynet, we don't have a native kind of compute layer. We just have the storage layer. All that kind of compute and processing happens inside the browser. And browsers don't need to make thousands of calls looking for data all across Skynet when we can have a server do that and just kind of publish the results. And so that was kind of the model we built for this. We had a scraper going and finding all of this data that users were publishing. And then the front end here makes an API call to that server and says, hey, give me the top 10 users or maybe the top 10 things that they've interacted with. And this past week, we actually did a really exciting update, which isn't published live, but we are working on it in development, where that whole scraper infrastructure is all hosted on Akash at this point. And so the last little bit is going to be doing our backup and restore to Skynet as well. But it's really exciting that not only are we hosting that kind of needed server layer on Akash, but that server is sitting there doing all this communication with Skynet, and it's doing really complicated, database interaction and, really, complicated interactions with Skynet, but all still in a way where we don't have to rely on AWS or someone else to be hosting a centralized component for that.
I think this also points to one of the challenges with blockchains is that no matter how fast your blockchain is, it's not necessarily the right answer for a database, right? Skynet provides a massive storage solution, but at the same time, sometimes you need a database of a different type, right? So SkyDB is a good example of how Skynet's kind of building that database of the future. But still, there's always going to be some need for a compute layer and a Akash layer to add some compute to any solution. So I think it kind of shows like, hey, blockchain can build pretty much anything now. Right, you can use blockchain and you can use decentralized system, rather not blockchain, but you can use decentralized systems now to build entire applications that scale and at speed. So, what database did we use? Mongo in this, or was it SkyDB? What did we use for this?
Yeah, so the API itself has a MongoDB instance where it's kind of saving this data to quickly query and respond to API calls. But all the data itself, that it is scraping, and then it's then also backing up to is SkyDB and what we call MySky files. And so they're both just kind of this mutable data on Skynet that we've got. So
cool. Do you want to do a demo for us, Derek, and maybe then we can answer some questions, because I see a lot of questions coming in.
Sure.
So what have you built, Derek? Because I kind of got surprised by this yesterday. I was looking for a demo to do, and the demo gods shine down brightly on us.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully my screen is showing, because I'm not looking at the feed right now. But I'll start with saying, the thing that caught me the most with Skynet and CS storage was really immutability. Overall, and it kind of cued something in my head that I thought worked really well, not just for development, but for large storage in general with Git itself. And so the scientific community or media people, storing large PSD files. But really, what this has gone to is that it is seamless deploy to Skynet. Using only Git, and because the portals are actually interfaced in such a way that a user doesn't need to do any lifting, it works really well for a workflow, especially using Git open source projects. And that's kind of what we'll see today in our demo is as we march towards easing the friction of deployment for the engineer who's deploying these DApps onto Akash and onto Skynet. For us at Akash, Skynet really does help in the fact that we're not a storage provider. We're a layer underneath. And so to have a storage provider potentially on top of us, especially if we, run our own Akash portals as an example, it's really advantageous for us. So what I kind of want to walk through today is just showing, the people a quick integration running what's known as an LFS server or a large file storage. I've written a few adapters to interface with the Skynet storage. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a wonderful image of our CEO at Akash, Greg, being abducted into the crypto UFO. And we're going to actually just commit this to our Git repo, and I'm using VS Code here. I am going to show you pushing using the Git terminal, just because I think it'll show a little bit more feedback for the demo. But you definitely could use the UI and never interface with Git itself. There are just a few things to be aware of, before we continue, is that we do have the LFS extension installed. Which is becoming, more mainstream as we go. There are actual support in Git proper now for a lot of the stuff that LFS does, but you still need to install and enable the extension. Once it's installed, then we've used it to track some specific files, so JPEGs and PNGs, for instance, in this repository. And then I'm running it locally. And so we will be providing this obviously open source because we want to keep a decentralized future. So if you want to run this on your own and interface, with a Skynet portal, you can. Or, obviously to ease the burden for our users, we'll also be hosting this as well. So one thing to note in this repository then is it's fairly empty right now. And so I've got just the base of what I've put. So now I'm going to commit this image. So the image is ready. Message and commit. And now I'm going to push. And like I said, I'm going to use the command line here. Oh, let me. Where am I at? That's the problem. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to push. And what you'll notice then is that LFS is going to run, and it's going to start uploading objects. This is actually uploading objects through a localized portal that's running, then that's touching Skynet, and then pushing those off onto Skynet. So that has been done. I've committed to my repository. Now, if I refresh my repository, it looks like the image has been committed, which is typical. But if we actually look here, it's not. It's what's known as an OID pointer in the Git world. And this OID pointer then, with your local current instance. So again, we're going to host this, and we obviously have open source contributions we want to commit back. This is then pointing to the Skynet link, and I'm using the SIA portal here to actually host this image. So there's our image now automatically uploaded and offloaded. And so we're working on tooling that would obviously then inline these easily into your web application so that you don't have to do it. But what's kind of neat then about this, especially if I allude back to the scientific community or media designers that are trying to use Git, and traditionally they've either paid large sums of money for Git storage, or they have somebody savvy enough to do it on their team to actually interface with AWS. But so now I've actually removed the project from my machine, and I'm going to clone it again. So what's kind of cool, what we'll see here is that even though this image doesn't exist in this repository, as soon as I clone it, Git reaches out to Sia Sky and grabs the image from the portal and inlines it with my developer experience here locally. So this is the demo that we've got, that I've got to show today to kind of show how we're going to continue to march to ease these integration points for developers. And the next step is really just doing a full automated deploy with a single Git push to both services.
Thank you for showing us that awesome demo.
Cool.
I love that I can just push to Skynet from GitHub. That's pretty awesome. And just to give everyone a heads up, you're also going to add Akash support. So it's going to push both the Skynet and Akash with one CLI command. So you can or one GitHub action, right? So it's just up git push, and then everything gets redeployed to Akash. So that's where we're going, and that's what is going to kind of change the game, I think, for developers. I think a lot of people are working on UIs and deploy tools for developers that are UI based, but a lot of people just work in Git, right? A lot of people just want to do a Git push. So that's how a lot of people work, and that's the easiest way is to bring Akash and Skynet to the developers, to their existing tools. So Dan, we got 5 minutes, so you want to do a demo?
Sure. I would love to just show what it looks like to deploy a Skynet front end. If folks, would entertain that from me. I threw together a quick little demo that just shows a little bit of a front end interacting with an API so that folks can kind of see what that would look like for a Skynet app using Akash. And I also just wanted to show how simple it was to kind of work with deploying a Skynet application. And so what I've done here is I've created a React app. If you're familiar with React, there's a kind of thing called Create React App. You can run npx create React app, and then the name of your program. and it will create what I've got right here. And when I run yarn start, you have this beautiful application like this. And so this is just the basic React app here. And I wanted to show what it looked like, one, to add an API access, and two, to kind of deploy it onto Skynet. And so instead of doing live coding here, I'm just going to check out this branch of step 2 that I've made. And we see really what we've added here is an API endpoint, and I'm using a proxy. So this is some ugly code here. But all I've done is kind of added a button. And when you click on the button, it says, fetch some information from this API endpoint, and then let's load it into our application state, and then show this dog wisdom on our application here. And so if I do a refresh, I've made an application here where I can load some dog wisdom from this dog API that isn't living on Akash, but obviously could be. Okay, so I have a React application. That's nice and exciting. Let's look at what it looks like to deploy this. Well, I can run a yarn build command here. As I mentioned before, while that builds, I can go to sci-sky.net. And earlier I showed how to upload a file. But we can also upload directories. And when you upload a directory that has an index.html file, you are deploying a website. When you go to that Skylink, you'll automatically load that index file in the background, and you'll be off to the races. So we are still building. Probably should have run this build command before doing a live demo here.
Risk taker.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and just throw in another third tier here to interact with. Oh, it's chugging along. So yeah, so this is how, this is the maybe the naive approach for deploying a website. We have some GitHub actions if you want to build it into your CI tooling. We have community members that have built command line tools like skydeploy that will let you just type out skydeploy, and it'll find your build file and upload it. But this is really the gist of it. All I did was create this create React app. There is one line that I have to change in package.json to make it work on Skynet, and that's it. And then in the next month, we're going to be making this deployment tooling a lot more powerful with support for things like Gatsby and some other ideas. You're going to have to believe me that this works because my build process is not happy right now. But I do want to just quickly show one other idea here with Skynet and deployment. And I've made a kind of step 3 to this project where I also am using Skynet in the application itself. And so if you look here, we've got plenty of resources to kind of walk through this code better. But I'm able to import a Skynet client and create that and connect to a Skynet portal here. And what I'm going to do in this version of the app is get my wisdom from the internet. But let's say I don't like it when other people get wisdom before me. I want to be the arbiter of wisdom. And so I could load my wisdom and then choose to publish that onto Skynet when I'm ready to. And so no one else gets to just sit here and load lots of dog wisdom, but I see one that I like and I say, okay, let's publish this to Skynet. And in the code, what we can see is I am taking the information that I get from the API. And when I click publish, I'm putting that in a JSON object and just saying Skynet client, set JSON to this specific private key and data key. I want to set this data that I'm going to publish. And then once I publish that, I'll get a URL back. And if I go to that URL, we can see that this is the latest kind of published data that I've accessed. And I can then say, all right, now I want everyone to know that dogs have twice as many muscles to move their ears as people. And publish that. And if I come over here, my Sky link will not change, but maybe the JSON that's being pulled up does. And so this is kind of a trivial example, but it's really powerful, right? We could point this to user profiles. This could be an RSS feed. We could host, whole podcast streams using this, where this is an RSS feed pointing to other Sky files. And it really opens up a lot of possibilities for both server-side and client-side applications. All right, I kind of rushed that, but I wanted to leave the room for questions.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you both for that. And Colin, you kind of alluded to, did a little foreshadowing on some challenges that we're going to be kind of presenting on our discourse forum. Wanted to see if you guys wanted to cover that very quickly before we jumped into audience questions.
Sure. If you go to the website skyex.io, skyex.io, it'll direct you right to the challenge, making sure that all the details will be in there. We'll probably update it. I just published and update it. So that's we're going to give away $10,000 to the winner of the prize. And then we will be reviewing all of these applications. So if you fill out you basically need to go fill out a forum post. And then after the challenge is done, if you continue working on it, we may continue funding you. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the next 1 month. So I think some people are asking about the deadline. So if you take a look at that post here, I'll just share my screen so you guys can see it. Realize it wasn't. So if you go to skyex.io, you'll be redirected here, and you can see the prize. You can see the deadline is August 9th. Submission process, simply share it on this forum. So if you click on share it on this forum, it just takes you to this page. So we're ready for submissions. You can start your submissions now. You don't need to wait a month to submit your submissions. You just share what you're working on. And then at the end, on July 9th, we will review all of the forum posts as they are submissions to the challenge. And we'll have a committee of folks within the community as well as within the core dev team review them and choose the winner. There will be one winner for $10,000. That said, if you build something amazing, we're going to, oh wow, that was a little fun. If you build something amazing, we're going to still potentially fund you and find another hackathon for you. One thing to note, which I should probably add to the notes, is that we want a real Skynet and Akash integration. We don't want to use a third party to integrate them. We will have other challenges that include file base in the future, but for this challenge, we want to see Skynet and Akash being integrated with directly, not using a file base to connect to Skynet or SIA. You still can, and you can still submit that. It's just, guidelines are, we're really focused on, and the winner is probably going to be someone that integrates directly with Skynet. We will have more challenges in the future. So if you don't win this challenge, don't be dismayed. There's going to be more challenges coming very soon, including community funds and grant programs. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys develop. And also, I've put links in that post to everything that we talked about today. So all the help guides, all the community guides, as well as what Derek has just demoed. And I think what Dan has just demoed, all those things are in there. So you have a starting point. There's no rules about what you can use or not reuse. The last hackathon was won by somebody who, someone else took his deploy UI and submitted it to the hackathon, and the winner was obviously the person who put the most, both people. So just because someone else has done a lot of the work doesn't disqualify you. We'll just make sure that where you've taken the work from, we compensate those people as well. So you can work as a team and you can reuse other people's code. We're looking to build real applications. And if you read the guidelines, you'll see we're really looking for something that can be run 24/7 and maintained as a service. I'm going to pause there because we're running out of time for questions.
No worries, Colin. A lot of really good, useful information. We've had a lot of questions that have come in from the audience. I'm going to try to get through a lot of them, but if we don't get to your questions, you can definitely reach out to Skynet or Akash on our Twitter and just tag us, and we'll do our best to respond there. So I'm going to look through some of these questions. I'm going to try to ask the most interesting ones. And the first one I'm going to direct maybe towards you, Daniel. Could I use Skynet as a container registry?
Yeah, it's not going to be vanilla Skynet, but I don't see why not. And actually, you might want to direct that to an Akash person, because I believe that there's a project being built on Akash that does this, if I'm not mistaken.
Colin?
What was the question? Sorry.
The question was, could I use Skynet as a container registry?
Yes, actually. So that's a great question. We actually have a open registry project in flight right now. Jasdeep Singh has built it. The website's going to be openregistry.dev. You can find it on our forum. It's under the Akash Open, which is an open challenge on Gitcoin. So I assume we will be funding that. We've blogged about it. We've shared it in our blog post about Skynet and Akash. When we partnered, we shared about Open Registry. And the idea there is replace Docker Hub. So if you know Docker Hub, you love it. It's great. It has so many files on it. But Docker Hub's actually owned by Mirantis, which is the company that bought Docker. So it's actually a centralized repository. And if they have rate limits and they have fees, and there's a lot of reasons why you might not want to use Docker Hub. And also we're so reliant on Docker Hub being a central location. It's not a good idea. We want to have a decentralized version.
Excellent. Cool. Looking at the time, so I'll jump right into some other questions. Can you mount Skynet/SIA volumes to containers running in Akash?
Can you mount SIA Skynet volumes on to an Akash? That's a good question. I think some folks are. You can certainly mount a lot of things out there. Anything that's S3 compatible, you can. There's tools out there that can mount an S3 compatible storage. I don't know what the speed, like how that affects speed, but there's definitely ways you can mount an S3. You can mount if you can mount Google Drive, you can mount Skynet. So yes.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that there's going to be obviously some sort of compatibility layer there. You can run a SIA node and then interact with SIA in that way, but your Akash instance is going to be very large and compute heavy at that point. But if you want to use, I don't know if I can share my screen magically real fast, but there are also kind of service providers that do this as a service, and so. Cold Stack, I think, is still in beta, but Firebase has been doing this for a while, and there's been some Akash integrations with Firebase that use kind of an S3 compatible layer, so you can use the traditional S3 APIs to interact with either SIA or Skynet or other storage layers.
Excellent, very cool. So we are running definitely low on time, so I'm going to do one more quick question before we wrap things up. Saw a lot of questions kind of around this, but. Is there a AWS CLI-like tool for Skynet?
It probably depends on what you're looking at for that functionality. That's the AWS CLI tool is very powerful and does a lot of things. But for uploading, downloading, the kind of basics, yes. And otherwise, you can point the AWS CLI tool at one of these S3 compatible layers.
Excellent. Cool. Excellent. So there were a lot of questions we couldn't get to. I apologize. There was a lot of great information that happened during this live stream, so sorry we couldn't get to those ones. But I wanted to say follow Akash and Skynet on Twitter and definitely tag us, and we'll do our best to respond to some of those questions we couldn't get to in today's live stream. So with that, I wanted to kind of end our live stream. I wanted to thank Colin, Derek, and Daniel for their time today. And I wanted to give a special thanks to all of our attendees who joined from around the world. I saw early on they were mentioning all sorts of cities. I do want to do something that I haven't done before, but I want to give a special shout out to our producer extraordinaire, Olive Komodo, who's been helping make this live stream look beautiful. And then besides that, Colin, Daniel, Derek, how can folks get a hold of you online?
Folks can get a hold of me on Twitter at Daniel Gileshelm, but preferably on Discord, where we have a really active Skynet community. Discord.gg/Skynet Labs to join our community. And they are super generous with their knowledge, and I'm there a lot too. So say hello to us there.
Excellent. Colin?
You can reach me on Discord anytime, any hour of the day. I'm at Colinster 001. As well, I'm on Twitter as Colo, COLO. but I'm mostly on Discord, so that's the easiest way to reach me. Happy to have a one-on-one meeting if you need a little help to walk through something. I run partnerships, so if you've got a company or you've got a product you want to onboard onto Akash, let's make a deal. So
excellent. And Derek. Oh, you're muted.
I had my microphone up. Easiest way to find me is at akash.network. Head over to the About page and scroll on down until you find my picture. You'll see all my social media links as well as links to our Discord, and you can bug me on there as well.
Excellent. And I can vouch for Colin being basically online 24/7. So take him up on that offer, see what happens. So as a quick reminder, the challenges that we mentioned today, you can check out on the Discourse forum. Lastly, if you want to keep this conversation going, definitely join Akash, Skynet, Twitter's, Discord, Telegram channels. But beyond that, I want to thank you all for joining again today. It was a fantastic live stream, and we'll see you at the next one. See you guys.
Thanks so much.